For the first time since the adoption of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in 2015, a high-level political forum on sustainable development convened last month during the UN General Assembly. At the summit aimed to review the progress in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda and its SDGs. World leaders adopted a political declaration that launches an ambitious and accelerated response to the agenda to make the next decade one of action and delivery. And on the backdrop of the official launch of the 2019 Global Sustainable Development Report, today we go in-depth into how far we have come and what tasks are left with Professor Kim Eun-mee from Ewha Womans University, Graduate School of International Studies. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So from 2000 to 2015, UN members and leading institutions agreed on Millennium Development Goals, which were a blueprint to meet the needs of the world's poorest. Now, can you first give us a rundown of how we should understand these Sustainable Development Goals?
While the Millennium Development Goals really focused on developing countries and what the other part of the world can assist them, the Sustainable Development Goals is for the whole world. It's for developing countries as well as developed countries, so that's a big difference. And the process in which we agreed on SDGs was really a bottom-up and top-down process. It was a very democratic process. We canvassed the whole world to find out what are the pressing issues and problems. So that's how we came up with 17 goals for the SDGs. As in the 2012 Rio Plus 20 Earth Summit, we have been discussing the future we want generated by the people, and it's about economic development, social development, and environmentally sustainable development as a whole. So we want this whole package by 2030 so that we can have a more peaceful, prosperous world for all and living in harmony with the environment.
So the Sustainable Development Goals all interconnect to achieve the goal of leaving no one behind.
Right.
And can we say small acts such as environment-friendly consumption trends or supporting gender equality or even pursuing denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula as all part of implementing these SDGs?
I think that's very true because in trying to understand and find ways to better implement the Sustainable Development Goals, our report has developed 4 levers, and one of the 4 levers is individual and collective action. We place as great emphasis on this as well as governance, finance and economy, and science and technology. That means our individual behavior change and our collective behavior change is going to be a critical component of how we move from here to the Sustainable Development Goals.
So at the request of UN member countries to evaluate the progress of the 2030 SDG agenda, the Global Report on Sustainable Development was launched, and it consists of surveys on scientific findings from ocean livelihoods to sustainable consumption, production, and disaster risk management, among others. Now, you yourself took part in the writing of this report and cautioned that the world is going backwards on equality, climate change, and ecological footprint. Can you share with us some of the key points of this report?
Right. I brought this report. This is the Future is Now, and this is a report that we worked on as we were mandated by the member states of the UN. We were appointed at the end of 2016, and we finished our job at the last General Assembly on September 24th. So this was a work of about close to 2.5, 3 years. In this report, we tried to find out, using scientific evidence, how do we get to the sustainable development for the whole world? We have found that in many of the 17 goals, some are on target, some are going a little slower, but we also found, as you mentioned, 4 areas which we're actually going backwards. That's climate change mitigation, biodiversity, rising inequalities, and ecological footprint. The waste that we put in the environment is not able to handle that properly. So these are 4 areas in which we need immediate action. In our report, we say we're writing this for 2019, but the Sustainable Development Goals, we're trying to achieve all the goals by 2030. So there's only 11 years left. So a decisive decade ahead is one of our important messages that we want to sound the alarm bell. We don't have much time. We really have to act now. And in terms of trying to understand how the 17 goals can be achieved we proposed 6 areas of transformation. Instead of trying to cherry pick the 17 goals, we say we have to do it in a very comprehensive and integrated way. And we propose 6 areas of transformation using system thinking, like the food system, energy system, to name a few, and then use the 4 levers to try to find out how we can achieve those. So these are some of the key findings, and we do propose some call for action so that the world leaders must understand that we need to act now. There's no time in order to meet to meet the targets of the Agenda 2030. We don't have time.
So it's been 4 years since the Sustainable Development Goals were adopted. How do you see the progress so far? You did touch upon it slightly. And are there any outstanding countries in terms of the implementation?
By working on this report and working with the UN, we learned that we can't shame or praise one country against another, so we try to stay away from that. We did notice that, in particular in rising inequalities, there were some areas within the world that it's getting more concentrated. On the one hand, it's good news that the rest of the world is doing better, but we also see some areas where inequalities are compounded. It has exacerbated over time, so we really need to take handle of those areas. So on the one hand, overall there's been progress, but still there's some lagging areas that we must take action now. And these are compounded by inequalities, environmental degradation, climate change, and so on.
So President Moon Jae-in also stressed during his address at the UN General Assembly this year that South Korea is making all-out efforts on its part to implement the goals. And he said the country has formulated its own mechanism for implementing this so-called KSDGs. And what did they entail?
The KSDGs, I was also a part of the working group, and we tried to understand what are the challenges in achieving SDGs. Unlike the MDGs, which was a tool to help developing countries, so we use official development assistance, or ODA, to help reach the Millennium Development Goals. But for Sustainable Development Goals, we have 2 obligations. One is also continuing to use ODA for helping developing countries, but also our internal within Korea, how we are doing on the SDG goals. The team, it was a very large team. It was very comprehensive. We met with a lot of people, and we have been doing a lot of outreach work. The KSDGs have done a lot to domesticate the SDGs, to find out, according to the SDG goals, how does Korea fare in each of the goals? And I think they did a very important job elaborating that and pointing out where action is needed. On the other hand, I find that we could have done a little more in terms of integrating and bringing a more holistic picture. I think we could have done better. I also see that we still need a whole of government approach. The current laws are still under the Ministry of Environment, but we really need to elevate that to the presidential or the prime minister level, so the whole of government, all the line ministries, will be behind this. So I think we have done a lot, but there's still some more work that needs to be done.
Yeah, so in fact, the Presidential Commission on Sustainable Development was also established to overlook the implementation within the country. But many Koreans are still unfamiliar with SDGs, the average Korean. But an increasing number of firms are beginning to support the agenda. And I'm sure you witnessed such developments while working on the report. In your opinion, has South Korea made some significant progress towards achieving the SDGs, or do we still have a far way to go?
I wish I could say that Korea has done far better than other countries, but I think there's still a lot to be done. Inside Korea, as I mentioned, I really think we need a much stronger whole of government approach, that this is a mandate given to us by the whole world, for the whole world to survive beyond 2030, beyond 2050, so we could have a better future for our future generations. So I think there's more work to be done, and I hope by raising better awareness on SDGs and what it can do for us, we can get more people on board, including the government officials, but including everyone, children in schools, universities, public sector, private sector, and so on. When we were working on the report, we felt that the private sector and businesses really do have a major role to play, and they can do a lot more than they are doing currently. We hope the Korean businesses will lead the way in terms of private sector engagement.
What are some ways that we can raise awareness among the people in the country?
I've been very pleasantly surprised by our young students. They have approached me and said they wanted to learn more about SDGs and found my name on several of the UN work. So they came and asked for my help, and I was very happy to help them. So I think by having a greater awareness, perhaps the president can really make a strong cry to the Korean public that sustainable development goals is something that we should embrace. And I think this will be a good vehicle for sustainable development, but also enduring peace, which are the two pillars of the program. So I hope the president, top down, will make that pledge. And I hope this will translate into the future generation, our youth work, because when I talk to the young students, it's really about their future. It's less about my future, but it's about their future and generations to come after them. So if there's a way to get the young children, even young children as in elementary school or high school and so on, to get them interested in some way, I think that would be the best.
So everyone has a part in the
Everyone has a part.
So the UN has set the deadline to achieve the goals by 2030. So like you said, just about 11 years left. And the report urged that all sectors must come together in order to achieve this goal in coordinated action, and that achieving human well-being and eradicating poverty could still be possible if these actions are taken. Now, what's the next goal for you and your fellow scientists that took part in the report?
There were 15 of us that were appointed by the then Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Although the report has been finished and published, we do have a mandate to go out and publicize the findings. And so each of us, on the 15 members, have agreed to do more regional engagements. I will be doing more in Asia, and my colleagues from Europe will be doing more European. So we will try our best to make the findings very public and try to get more people excited about SDGs so we can all join in. One of my pet project was the gender issue and inequality. So as a sociologist, I, unlike natural scientists, I was naturally migrated or gravitated to this topic. In terms of gender inequality, we find that it's very troubling that gender inequality has been so pervasive and prevalent, not just in developing countries, but developed countries and all countries, and has been continuing for so long. We find that gender inequality is compounded with other forms of inequality. So it's not just adding one more, but it's compounded. So a girl living in a rural area, if she's of indigenous ethnicity, if she hasn't gone and has been given any education and so on, these are compounded. So she's not able to remove herself from poverty. And it continues to the next generation, so it becomes intergenerational poverty and inequality. The three important ways that we suggest call for action in terms of fighting gender inequality is first, eliminating discriminations, eliminating those barriers that prevent girls and women to achieve, and providing opportunities to enhance their capabilities. In particular, we find education to be critical, And in education, we find that women and girls should be more exposed to STEM fields, which is science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And finally, we also suggested working with women's groups, labor unions, NGOs, so the community level work can come together to fight multiple forms of inequality for a better and more just society. So this is an area that I'll be doing more work.
And lastly, before we let you go, achieving the SDGs isn't something obviously that can be done overnight or by an individual. So how can individuals or a nation as part of the international committee proceed in order to accelerate the progress towards achieving these goals within the next 10 years? So what recommendations do you have?
I think there has to be an understanding that sustainable development is something that we all want. We have said that we want that, and now it's the implementation. We have set the goals, and through writing of this report, we were taking advantage of a lot of scientific evidence that was already out there. So it's not, we're not saying that we need more research to do it, but taking advantage of existing research, even including indigenous knowledge, to bring all of those together. So the time now is for implementation. We have the tools. If we come together with a shared vision, I think we can all do this. But everybody has to be on board.
So hopefully we'll have a decade of action and delivery. Thank you for your insights today.
Thank you.